My name is Maya Chen and I'm 31 years old. 4 years ago, my mother sent me a text message 2 days before Christmas that destroyed everything I thought I knew about belonging. Stay home this year. Jessica needs peace. 7 words. No explanation, no apology, just a door slammed in my face after 26 years of trying to matter. I spent that Christmas alone in a diner in Seattle, watching strangers celebrate while I cried over cold mashed potatoes and gravy. I had no idea the elderly couple in the booth across from me would become the parents I'd always needed. I had no idea that 4 years later they'd walk me down the aisle at my wedding while my biological parents stood outside in the parking lot, watching through the windows, finally understanding what they'd thrown away. Before I tell you what happened that changed my entire life, hit that subscribe button, but only if you've ever felt invisible in your own family, and drop a comment telling me where you're watching from right now because I read every single one. Let me take you back to the moment everything shattered. December 23rd. I remember the exact second. I was in my apartment in Seattle, wrapping presents for my family back in Portland. Presents I'd spent weeks choosing, presents that would never be opened. My phone buzzed. Mom's name lit up the screen. A text, not even a call. Maya, we need to talk about Christmas. Jessica is struggling with her pregnancy and the stress of hosting is too much. It's better if you don't come this year. She needs calm. I stared at those words until they blurred. I actually laughed. Surely this was a mistake. I called her immediately. She answered on the 5th ring. Mom, I just got your text. Is this a joke? Her voice was ice. No joke, Maya. Jessica's doctor said she needs to avoid stress. You understand. Stress? Mom, I haven't even seen Jessica in 3 months. How am I stressed? You know how you are. Her tone hardened. Always asking questions, always bringing up the past. She doesn't need that energy right now. That energy. Like my existence was toxic. Like wanting to be included in my own family was a character flaw. Mom, I already have my train ticket. Then cancel it. The line went dead. I stood there in my living room surrounded by wrapped gifts with little name tags. Mom. Dad. Jessica. Baby Emma. A family that had just erased me with a text message. And the worst part? This wasn't even the first time. My mind flashed back to every moment I'd been the acceptable loss. My 21st birthday. I'd planned a small dinner with friends at my favorite restaurant. That morning, Jessica called crying because her boyfriend had broken up with her. Mom insisted we cancel everything to comfort her. Your sister needs us more, Maya. Don't be selfish. We'll celebrate next week. We never did. Then there was my college acceptance letter. Full scholarship to the University of Washington, the first person in our family to get into a top school. I was so proud. I called home immediately. Mom answered. That's nice, sweetheart, but Jessica just found out she's pregnant and we're all in shock. Can I call you back? She never did. I learned to make myself smaller. Quieter. Less needy. I thought if I just didn't ask for anything, maybe they'd finally see me. But you can't shrink yourself into being loved. You just disappear. I called my father that night. I don't know what I expected. Maybe some small part of me believed he'd finally choose me. The phone rang 6 times. Hey, kiddo. His voice told me he already knew. Dad, did Mom tell you about Christmas? A long silence. I could hear a basketball game in the background. She mentioned it, yeah. And you're okay with this? You think it's fine to uninvite your daughter from Christmas? He sighed. You know how your mother is, Maya. She's just trying to keep everyone happy. By excluding me? That makes everyone happy. Another pause, longer this time. I think it's better if you listen to your mother this year. Something inside me went still. Not sad. Not angry. Just empty. Okay, Dad. Maya, don't be like that. I hung up. He didn't call back. That's when I knew. My father had a choice between his comfort and his daughter. He chose comfort. He always had. Christmas morning came cold and gray. I woke up to silence. No calls. No messages. Not even a Merry Christmas text. Around 11, I opened Instagram. That was my first mistake. Jessica had posted a family photo. Everyone gathered around the tree. Mom, Dad, Jessica, her husband Derek, little Emma in a red velvet dress. 5 smiling faces. I zoomed in and counted the presents under the tree. I looked at the couch in the background. No empty space where I should have been sitting. They hadn't just excluded me. They'd completely erased me, like I'd never existed at all. I closed the app and stared at my ceiling. I could order Chinese food and spend the day feeling sorry for myself. I could let them win. Let them turn me into exactly what they'd always said I was, dramatic, needy, too sensitive. Or I could refuse to disappear. I grabbed my coat. If I was going to eat Christmas dinner alone, I was going to do it somewhere with lights and warmth and the sound of people who actually wanted to be together. The Silver Spoon Diner was one of those old Seattle places with red leather booths and chrome everything. Most importantly, it was open on Christmas. When I walked in, the warmth hit me like a wall. The smell of roast turkey and apple pie. The soft chatter of families. Everywhere I looked, people who belonged to each other. The waitress gave me a sympathetic smile. Just you today, honey? Just me. She sat me at a small booth in the corner, right across from an elderly couple who looked like they'd been coming here for decades. Your server will be right over. I opened the menu and pretended to read it, but the words swam. The couple across from me was sharing a piece of pie, laughing about something, finishing each other's sentences the way people do when they've loved each other forever. This is what family looks like, I thought. This ease. This joy. This certainty that you matter to someone. My food arrived. Turkey, stuffing, cranberry sauce, everything perfect. I couldn't taste any of it. I was pushing green beans around my plate when the tears started. I turned toward the window, trying to be invisible like always, pressing my napkin against my eyes. Sweetie? I froze. A woman's voice, gentle and concerned. Are you all right? I looked up. The elderly woman from across the way was standing beside my booth. White hair pulled back in a soft bun, bright blue eyes full of kindness, the kind of face that had spent a lifetime actually caring about people. I'm fine, I said automatically. Just allergies. She smiled softly, not buying it for a second. Allergies don't usually strike on Christmas Day in a diner. I let out a laugh that was half sob. That obvious? Only to someone paying attention. She had a warmth in her voice that made me want to cry harder. I'm Dorothy. Maya. Well, Maya, she glanced back at her husband, then at me. No one should eat Christmas dinner alone. Why don't you join us? I shook my head. Oh no, I couldn't possibly intrude. You're not intruding, dear. I'm inviting you. There's a difference. I really appreciate it, but my husband makes terrible jokes, she continued like I hadn't spoken, and he'll probably tell you his entire war stories, but you might as well suffer with us instead of over here by yourself. From the booth, the elderly man waved at me with a grin. She never takes no for an answer. 62 years, and I've learned to just go with it. I looked at my untouched food, then at Dorothy's warm eyes, then at the booth where they'd made space. Okay, I heard myself say. If you're really sure. I'm sure. Come on, we just ordered more coffee and there's way too much pie. I followed her on shaky legs, not knowing this woman I just met was about to change everything. They made room like I'd always been there. The husband, William, shook my hand with a firm grip. Welcome to our table, young lady. So you're Maya, Dorothy said, settling back into her seat. Tell us about yourself. What do you do? I'm a marketing coordinator for a tech startup. Mostly remote work. That's wonderful, William said. We're both retired teachers. Spent 40 years in classrooms. Dorothy taught English, I taught history. We like to say we educated half of Seattle. I smiled, a real smile. That's amazing. Do you have family in the area? William asked, then caught himself. I'm sorry, that's probably why you're. It's okay, I interrupted. My family is in Portland. They're busy this year. Dorothy's eyes met mine and I saw understanding there. No judgment. Just knowing. Well, she said warmly, you're with family now. Pass her the rolls, William. And just like that, I was part of their Christmas. William told stories about his students, making me laugh until my sides hurt. Dorothy asked about my work with genuine interest, actually listening to my answers. When dessert came, they ordered 3 slices of pie and 3 forks, and we all ate from the same plates like we'd done it 1,000 times. I forgot about the text message. I forgot about the Instagram post. For 2 hours, I felt like I mattered. After the meal, Dorothy excused herself to the restroom. William leaned forward, his expression serious. She doesn't usually do this, he said quietly. Invite strangers to join us. But she saw something in you. Maybe she saw someone who needed to know they weren't alone. He patted my hand. You're a good kid, Maya. I can tell. Don't let anyone make you feel otherwise. When the check came, I reached for my wallet, but William waved me off. Absolutely not. This is our treat. I can't let you pay for me. You can and you will. He smiled. Consider it a Christmas tradition. We always buy dinner for new friends. As we gathered our coats, Dorothy pressed something into my palm. A small card with her name and phone number. If you ever need anything, call me. Even just to talk. I looked at this woman who'd known me for 3 hours and offered more kindness than my family had in years. Thank you, I whispered. She squeezed my hand. Family isn't just blood, Maya. It's showing up. I stood in that diner holding a stranger's phone number, and something in my chest cracked open. Not breaking. Opening. Like maybe there was another way to live. Maybe I didn't have to keep begging for crumbs from people who'd never feed me. Maybe I could find a table where I was actually wanted. I didn't know then that I'd just met the people who would become my real parents. I didn't know that this moment would be the beginning of everything. I just knew that for the first time in my life, I'd spend a holiday feeling seen. I didn't call Dorothy for 2 weeks. It felt strange, too forward, like I'd be imposing. But she called me. Just checking in, she said warmly. How are you doing, dear? And we talked for an hour. About nothing and everything. She told me about her garden, about the book club she ran, about William's obsession with building model trains in their basement. I told her about my work, about Seattle, about the life I was building. She listened like every word mattered. At the end of the call, she said something that stayed with me. We have dinner every Sunday at our house. Nothing fancy, just good food and conversation. You're welcome anytime, Maya. And I mean that. The next Sunday, I showed up. That was the first of many. Over the next 6 months, I became a fixture at the Chen household. Dorothy taught me to make her famous dumplings. William showed me his model train collection and told me stories about teaching during the civil rights movement. They introduced me to their son, James, a software engineer around my age who lived across town. We became friends immediately. Real friends. The kind who text random thoughts at midnight and debate movies and sit in comfortable silence. I didn't hear from my biological family once. Not a text. Not a call. Not even a like on social media. For the first time in my life, I stopped waiting for their approval. I stopped checking my phone hoping they'd remember I existed. Because I was too busy living with people who actually wanted me there. One evening, Dorothy and I were in her kitchen making spring rolls. The radio played softly. William was reading the paper. It felt like home. Have you talked to your parents? Dorothy asked gently. No. I focused on folding. And they haven't reached out either. She nodded, no judgment in her expression. Do you want to? I thought about it. Really thought about it. Sometimes, I admitted. Late at night, I think about calling my mom. Trying to explain. But then I remember, she already knows what she did. She just doesn't think it was wrong. That's a painful truth, Dorothy said softly. It is. I set down the spring roll. Everyone says you should forgive family no matter what. But what if forgiveness just means letting them hurt you again? Dorothy wiped her hands and turned to me. Can I tell you something I learned in 40 years of teaching? I nodded. The students who demanded the most grace were often the ones who gave the least. The ones who hurt others and then got angry when there were consequences. She touched my shoulder. You don't owe anyone unlimited chances to hurt you, Maya. Not even family. Especially not family. Her words settled into my bones. That night, lying in bed, I thought about what she'd said. I thought about Dorothy and William, who'd invited me into their lives without conditions. Who never made me earn their affection. Who showed me what it looked like when people chose you simply because they wanted to. What if this was my real family? What if the people who raised you weren't always the people who saved you? 2 years after that Christmas in the diner, something shifted between James and me. We'd been friends, close friends, the kind who knew each other's coffee orders and could finish each other's sentences. But one night, sitting on his apartment balcony watching the city lights, he turned to me and said, I need to tell you something. Okay, I said, my heart suddenly racing. I'm in love with you. He looked terrified. I have been for months. Maybe longer. I didn't want to ruin what we have, but I can't keep pretending I don't feel this way. I stared at him, this man who'd become my best friend, who made me laugh, who knew all my stories and loved me anyway. And I realized I'd been in love with him too. I was just too scared to admit it. I'm in love with you too, I whispered. His face broke into the biggest smile I'd ever seen. He kissed me right there on his balcony with the Seattle skyline glittering around us, and it felt like everything had finally clicked into place. We dated for a year before he proposed, and it was perfect. Simple. He took me back to the Silver Spoon Diner, to the exact booth where Dorothy had first invited me to sit, and he got down on one knee. Maya Chen, he said, you walked into my parents' lives and changed everything. Then you walked into mine and made it make sense. Will you marry me? I said yes before he finished the question. The wedding planning started immediately. Venue, flowers, catering, cake. It was exciting and overwhelming and everything I'd never let myself dream about. But one question kept me awake at night. The invitation would need a line for parents of the bride. And I had no idea what to write. Sarah and Robert Chen? They'd been more my parents than my biological ones had ever been. But it felt presumptuous. Like I was claiming something I had no right to. I was sitting in Dorothy's living room one afternoon, staring at a blank invitation template on my laptop. "What's wrong, sweetheart?" Dorothy sat beside me. I told her about the invitation. About not knowing what to write. Dorothy was quiet for a moment. Then she said, "Have you ever heard of adult adoption?" I looked up. "What?" "It's a legal process," she explained, "where a consenting adult is adopted by another family. It creates a legal parent-child relationship. New birth certificate, new legal status, everything." My heart started pounding. "That's real?" "Very real." She took my hand. "William and I have been talking about this for months. We've considered you our daughter since that first Christmas. We were just waiting for you to be ready." Tears streamed down my face. "Are you asking?" "We're asking, Maya." She smiled. "Would you let us legally become your parents?" The adoption process took 4 months. Paperwork, court appearances, legal procedures. Dorothy walked me through every step, explaining everything, making sure I understood what it meant. When the judge signed the final papers, I legally became Maya Chen. I had a new birth certificate with Dorothy and William listed as my parents. I was theirs, officially and forever. The wedding invitations went out 3 months later with the line I'd struggled so long to write. Parents of the bride, Dorothy and William Chen. I should have known the Hartford family would find out. 6 weeks before the wedding, my phone rang. Unknown number. I almost didn't answer. "Hello? Maya?" It was Jessica's voice. "I haven't heard from you in almost 4 years. I heard you're getting married. How did you find out? Does it matter?" Her voice had an edge. "Why didn't you tell us? We're your family." I took a breath. "Are you?" "Because family usually speaks to each other more than once every 4 years. That's not fair, Maya. You're the one who disappeared." I hung up. She called back twice. I didn't answer. 3 days later, my mother called. 5 times in one afternoon. I let every call go to voicemail. Finally, a text. "We heard about your wedding. We're your parents, Maya. You owe us an invitation. Call me immediately." I read it twice, then blocked her number. I wasn't angry anymore. I'd moved past anger years ago. I was just done. James found me staring at my phone that evening. "They found out, didn't they?" I nodded. "My mom wants an invitation." "What do you want to do?" "Nothing." I set the phone down. I don't owe them anything. Not an explanation. Not an invitation. Nothing. He pulled me close. "I support whatever you choose." I knew this wasn't over. The Hartfords weren't the type of people who accepted being told no. The question was, how far would they go? She showed up at my office on a Wednesday. I was in a meeting when the receptionist buzzed. "Maya, there's someone here to see you. Says she's your mother." My stomach dropped. I excused myself and walked to the lobby. There she was. Linda Hartford. She looked older. Grayer. Tired. But her expression was the same mixture of disappointment and entitlement I remembered from childhood. "Maya." Like no time had passed at all. "What are you doing here?" "What am I doing here?" She stepped closer. "What are you doing, getting married without telling your own mother?" "We haven't spoken in 4 years, Mom." "And whose fault is that?" "Mine, apparently." I kept my voice level. "You told me not to come home for Christmas. You chose Jessica. Like you always did. That was one holiday, Maya. You can't still be holding on to that." I'm not holding on to anything. I've let go completely. That's the problem. Her eyes swept the office lobby, then landed back on me. I want an invitation to your wedding. No. Her mouth fell open. Excuse me? You heard me. I met her gaze. You don't get to erase me for 4 years and then demand a seat at my wedding. But I'm your mother. Not legally. The words came out calm. I was adopted 2 years ago. Dorothy and William Chen are my legal parents now. You're listed on a birth certificate I don't use anymore. The color drained from her face. You did what? I didn't replace you, Mom. I just stopped waiting for you to choose me. And I found people who did. She stared at me like I was a stranger. Maybe I was. The daughter who used to beg for scraps had finally learned to walk away from the table. This is insane, she whispered. This is boundaries, I corrected. Now please leave. I have work to do. I walked back to my office without looking back. My hands were shaking, but I felt lighter than I had in years. The wedding day was perfect. Napa Valley in June, a small vineyard with rolling hills and endless sky. We'd kept it intimate, 75 people who actually loved us. In the bridal suite, Dorothy helped me into my dress. She was crying, the happy kind. You look absolutely beautiful, sweetheart. I looked in the mirror. The woman looking back was confident, loved, whole. Are you nervous? Dorothy asked. About marrying James? Not even a little. I smiled. About what might happen today? A little. We'd hired security. Just in case. After my mother's office visit, I knew there was a chance she'd try something. Dorothy put her hands on my shoulders. Whatever happens, you have us. We chose you, Maya. We will always choose you. I hugged her tight. I love you, Mom. The word came out so naturally. Like it had always been waiting. I love you too, my darling girl. Through the window, I could see James at the altar looking nervous and happy. It was time. Dorothy handed me my bouquet. Ready? More than ready. The ceremony was everything I'd dreamed. James waiting at the end of the aisle. William walking me toward him, steady and proud. The vows we'd written that made everyone cry. When James slipped the ring on my finger and the officiant pronounced us married, I felt complete. The reception was in a beautiful stone barn decorated with fairy lights and white flowers. Music played. People danced. For 2 perfect hours. I forgot about everything except being happy. Then the security guard found me. Mrs. Chen. He was discreet, professional. There are 2 people at the entrance claiming to be your parents. My heart sank. James appeared beside me. What's going on? My biological parents are here. His jaw tightened. Want me to handle it? No. I took his hand. This is mine to handle. I had a choice. I could have them removed. I could pretend they weren't there. Or I could let them see. Let them witness what they'd lost. Let them watch the family who'd stepped up when they'd walked away. Let them in, I told the guard. But seat them in the very back. Are you sure? James asked. I'm sure. I want them to see everything. A few minutes later, I spotted them. Linda and Robert Hartford standing awkwardly at the edge of the reception, looking around at the people celebrating a daughter they'd discarded. The MC stepped to the microphone. The music softened. Ladies and gentlemen, if I could have your attention please. The room quieted. Guests turned toward the front. I watched my biological parents from across the barn. Linda was straining to see, Robert stood behind her looking uncomfortable. They had no idea. Before we continue, I'd like to honor some very special people. The parents of the bride. Linda straightened. I could see her preparing to be acknowledged, expecting recognition she hadn't earned. Please join me in welcoming Dorothy and William Chen. The room exploded in applause. Dorothy and William stood from the head table, smiling, waving to the guests. People cheered. The photographer captured everything. And across the barn, my mother's face went white. I watched the exact moment she understood. The confusion, the shock, the devastating realization that she'd been replaced. Completely, legally, officially. Dorothy and William Chen, the MC continued, the family who chose Maya and who Maya chose in return. The applause continued. Linda grabbed Robert's arm, her mouth moving but no sound coming out. Around them, guests clapped and smiled, completely unaware that the couple in the back had any connection to the bride at all. Linda pushed through the crowd before I could stop her. She reached me as the applause was fading, her face flushed, her eyes wild. Robert followed, looking like he wanted to disappear. What is this? Linda's voice shook. Who are those people? My legal parents. I kept my voice calm. I was adopted 3 years ago. You what? She actually stumbled back. You can't just replace us. I didn't replace you. I looked at her steadily. You abandoned me first. We never abandoned you. That was one Christmas, Maya. One Christmas turned into 4 years of silence. I felt James beside me, a quiet support. 4 years where you never once called. Never checked if I was alive. Never acknowledged I existed. Guests nearby had noticed. Conversations stopped. Heads turned. That's not fair, Linda started. Fair? My voice stayed level, but everyone around us could hear. You want to talk about fair? I spent 26 years trying to earn a place in your family. You know what I got? A text message uninviting me from Christmas. An Instagram post with no empty chair for me. 4 years of silence. I'm still your mother. Not legally. I held up my hand, both rings catching the light. Not emotionally. Not in any way that matters anymore. The room had gone completely silent. 75 people watching. Linda looked around, suddenly aware of the audience. This is humiliating, she hissed. Then leave. My voice was soft but final. You showed up uninvited to my wedding. You don't get to be the victim here. She stared at me like I was a stranger. Maybe I was. The daughter who'd apologized for existing had finally stopped shrinking. Then my father spoke. His voice cracked the silence. Maya. I'm sorry. I turned to look at him. Robert Hartford looked older, smaller, broken. I'm sorry, he said again, tears in his eyes. I should have protected you. Something twisted in my chest. Not healing, just recognition of an old wound finally being acknowledged. I know, Dad. I was a coward. His voice broke. I watched your mother and Jessica treat you like you didn't matter, and I just stood there. I let it happen. You were my little girl, and I failed you. A tear rolled down his cheek. I'm so sorry. The words I'd waited my whole life to hear. And they came too late. I know you're sorry, Dad. My voice was gentle but firm. But sorry doesn't undo the years. Sorry doesn't give me back my childhood. Sorry doesn't make this okay. I know. He wiped his eyes. I know it doesn't. Dorothy appeared at my side. She didn't speak, just placed her hand on my arm. A reminder that I wasn't alone anymore. Linda stared at Dorothy with pure hatred. You, she spat. You stole my daughter. Dorothy's expression didn't change. I didn't steal anyone, Mrs. Hartford. Then what do you call this? William stepped forward, positioning himself beside his wife. I think it's time for you to leave. Who are you to tell us anything? Linda's voice rose. I'm her father. William's voice was steel wrapped in velvet. Legally and in every way that counts. You stole our daughter. William shook his head slowly. No, ma'am. We didn't steal anything. You threw her away. We just picked up what you discarded. Linda flinched like she'd been slapped. 4 years ago, William continued, this young woman sat alone in a diner on Christmas because her family told her she wasn't welcome. My wife invited her to join us. We fed her. We talked to her. We treated her like she mattered. He stepped closer to Linda. Do you know what she told us that night? She said she couldn't remember the last time she felt wanted by her own family. 26 years old, and she couldn't remember ever feeling like she belonged. Linda's face crumbled. We didn't steal your daughter. We just showed her what family actually looks like. The rest was her choice. He turned to the security guards who'd been waiting nearby. This is my daughter's wedding day. The happiest day of her life. And I won't let anyone, ruin it. Please escort these people out. As the guards approached, William put his arm around me. Maya is a Chen now, he said quietly. And we protect our own. This is what a father sounds like, I thought. This is what it feels like to be chosen. Before security could reach them, I held up my hand. Wait. Everyone froze. Linda looked at me with something like hope. Maybe she thought I'd changed my mind. I walked toward my biological parents and stopped just out of reach. Mom. Dad. The words still felt strange for them. I need you to understand something. Linda lifted her chin. What? I don't hate you. Whatever she'd expected, it wasn't that. I don't hate you, I repeated. I've made peace with who you are. You're not evil people. You're just people who couldn't love me the way I needed. People who chose comfort over fairness. People who let one daughter disappear so the other could shine. Robert was crying again. Linda's face was stone. But I've also made peace with who I am. I stood straighter. And who I am is someone who deserves to be chosen. Not as a backup. Not when it's convenient. Chosen first. I looked at them both. The parents I'd spent my childhood trying to please. The family I'd made myself small for. You didn't choose me. I gestured to Dorothy and William. They did. And I choose them back. The barn was absolutely silent. I'm not erasing you from my history, I continued. I'm just not giving you a seat at my table anymore. And that's not revenge. That's just the consequence of your choices. I nodded to security. Goodbye. As they were led out, the wedding guests began to applaud. Not for the drama. For me. For finally standing up. For choosing myself. The rest of the night was perfect. We danced until our feet hurt. We ate cake while everyone sang. Jane spun me around the dance floor until I was dizzy with happiness. And for those hours, I let myself just be joyful. The next morning, my phone exploded with messages. Cousins I hadn't heard from in years. Aunts and uncles I barely knew. The extended Hartford family had heard about the wedding, and they had opinions. How could you do this to your mother? Family is family no matter what. You've destroyed your father. I deleted every message without responding. Then a text came from someone unexpected. My Aunt Patricia, my father's sister. Maya, I heard what happened. I want you to know I'm proud of you. I stared at the screen. I always knew Linda treated you wrong. I tried to say something once, and she didn't speak to me for 2 years. But you deserved better. You always did. My eyes burned. Thank you, I typed back. That means everything. On social media, Linda posted a long dramatic status about ungrateful children and broken families and how young people don't understand loyalty anymore. I didn't respond. I didn't need to. That evening, I blocked every number and social media account connected to the Hartford family. Not out of anger. Out of peace. James found me on our hotel balcony. You okay? I looked out at the vineyard, golden in the sunset. Yeah. I leaned into him. I really am. For the first time in my life, I wasn't carrying the weight of people who'd never wanted to carry me. I was finally free. 3 weeks after the wedding, a handwritten letter arrived. Jessica Hartford Collins. My sister's perfect cursive handwriting. I almost threw it away, but something made me read it. Dear Maya, I don't know if you'll even open this, but I had to try. Mom told me what happened at your wedding. She's devastated. Dad hasn't been the same. I think watching you so happy without us broke something in him. I know we haven't been close, but you have to understand, Mom and Dad were just trying to keep peace. I never meant for you to feel left out. You always made things so complicated, always bringing up old stuff. It was exhausting. I hope one day you'll understand that family is messy. Maybe when you have kids, you'll see why Mom made the choices she made. I'm not asking for an apology. I just wanted you to know we still love you, even if you've decided we're not good enough anymore. Your sister, Jessica. I read it twice. Then I folded it carefully and put it in a drawer. James came home to find me at the kitchen table. Letter from Jessica? What did she say? I stood and started making dinner. Nothing new. She still doesn't get it. Does that bother you? I thought about it. Really thought about it. No. It's not my job to make her understand anymore. It never was. 1 year after the wedding, life had become beautiful. James and I bought a house in the suburbs, a craftsman with a big backyard just 15 minutes from Dorothy and William. Close enough for Sunday dinners. Far enough for our own life. My career had taken off. I was promoted to senior marketing director. James's architecture firm made him partner. We were building a life together, and it was everything I'd never let myself dream about. And I was pregnant. Dorothy cried when we told her. William tried not to cry and failed. James's siblings were already arguing about who the baby would love most. One Sunday afternoon, Dorothy and I were setting up the nursery, painting the walls a soft yellow, arranging tiny furniture that seemed impossibly small. Have you thought about names? Dorothy asked, holding up 2 different mobiles. Lily. I smiled. If it's a girl. Lily Grace Chen. Dorothy's eyes filled with tears. That's perfect. The Chen part is important to me. I want her to have the name of the family that saved her mother. Dorothy set down the mobile and hugged me tight. You know, when I saw you in that diner, I had no idea we'd end up here. I just saw someone who needed kindness. You saved my life that night. No, sweetheart. She pulled back, hands on my shoulders. You saved yourself. We just showed you it was possible. I looked around the nursery. At the crib we'd picked together. At the rocking chair William had built by hand. At the life I'd created with people who loved me without conditions. For the first time in my life, I had everything I'd always needed. I was home. For years to the day after I sat alone in that Seattle diner, I sat at the head of a very different table. The Chen house was beautiful chaos. Lily, now 7 months old, was being passed from lap to lap like precious cargo. James's nieces were playing cards in the corner. His brother was arguing with him about football. William was sneaking extra pie when he thought Dorothy wasn't looking. She was. "All right, everyone." Dorothy clapped her hands. "Before we eat, I want to make a toast." She raised her glass and looked at me. "Maya, would you do the honors?" I stood, Lily in my arms, and looked around at the family I'd found. "4 years ago today," I said, "I was sitting alone in a diner wondering if I'd ever belong anywhere. I thought I was unlovable. I thought something was wrong with me. Too needy, too dramatic, too much." I paused, feeling James's hand on my back. Then a stranger named Dorothy Chen walked up to my table and said, "No one should eat Christmas dinner alone." And everything changed. William wiped his eyes. Dorothy was already crying. "So here's my toast." I raised my glass. "To family. Not the one we're born into, but the one we choose. The one we build. The one that chooses us back." "To family," everyone echoed. Glasses clinked. Lily made happy baby sounds. William got his extra pie. And I looked around at these people, my people, and felt the thing I'd chased my entire childhood. I belonged. Completely. Unconditionally. Without having to earn it. I was home. Later that night, James and I sat on the back porch with Lily asleep in her carrier between us. The December air was cold, but we had blankets, watching stars emerge one by one. "Do you ever think about them?" James asked quietly. "Your bio parents?" "Sometimes." I admitted. "Late at night mostly. I wonder if they've changed. If they understand what they lost." "Do you think they have?" I shook my head. "People rarely change. Not in the ways that matter." "Does that make you sad?" I looked at Lily, her tiny fist near her cheek, her perfect sleeping face, her chest rising and falling with each breath. "It used to," I said. "But not anymore. I spent so many years being sad about a family that didn't want me. I don't have room for that now. My life is too full." Marcus wrapped his arm around me. "What changed?" I did. I leaned into him. I stopped waiting for them to love me right. I stopped making myself smaller to fit their version of who I should be. And I started building something real. Through the window, I could see the Chen family, my family, cleaning up, wrapping leftovers, laughing together. "Setting boundaries isn't revenge," I said softly. "It's survival. Choosing yourself when no one else will." James kissed my forehead. "I'm glad you survived." "Me too." Lily stirred, and I picked her up, held her close. "I'll never make you earn my love," I whispered. "You'll never wonder if you're wanted. You'll always know." She yawned and fell back asleep, safe, loved, chosen. If you're watching this and you've ever been the scapegoat, if you've been told you're too sensitive or too dramatic just because you asked to be treated fairly, I need you to hear this. It's not you. It never was. You deserve to be chosen. Not as a backup. Not when it's convenient. Chosen first. Family isn't DNA. Family isn't obligation. Family isn't people who share your last name but treat you like a burden. Family is showing up. Family is the people who see you crying alone and invite you in. The people who open their homes and their hearts and make you officially, legally, permanently theirs. I spent 26 years trying to earn love from people who were never going to give it. Then I spent 4 years learning what real love looks like. Not from the family I was born into, but from the family who chose me. If the people who are supposed to love you can't, if they've proven over and over that you'll always come last, you have permission to build your own family. You have permission to walk away. You have permission to be happy without them. That's not revenge. That's not being dramatic. That's just living without people who don't deserve a seat at your table. I found my people. And I hope with everything in me that you find yours too. Because you deserve it. You've always deserved it. Thank you for being here until the very end. If this story touched you, hit that subscribe button and turn on notifications. Have you ever had to set boundaries with family? Tell me your story in the comments. I read every single one. Until next time, remember this, you deserve to be chosen.